Welcome back to the Evergreen RX. I'm your host, Hayden, licensed mental health therapist, Cancer Moon, and the first to get deep at any party. Happy to have you guys here today. I'm a little nervous for the episode. I'm not going to lie. I'm actually maybe more than a little nervous because I'm going to speak on something that I don't know if it gets talked about too much, and it's a little bit more therapy related. However, if you are like, I don't care about therapy or I'm not in therapy, so this isn't super relevant, I still think what I'm going to talk today, about connection and having expectations and mutual respect in relationships can apply to any relationship that grows over time. So I do think there's some relevance. Also, it's just like kind of interesting if you want a peek behind the curtain a bit in something that is so talked about nowadays, which is therapy and counseling and psychology and all of these things that people love to speak about online, because I think there's an inherent fascination with how we work, how the mind works, how healing happens, how do we change and improve over time. It's kind of a inherently cool thing to learn about, but maybe I'm biased. But yeah, I am nervous because this is a bit more of a personal episode for me. Not particularly like I'm telling some super personal story, but just my thoughts about being a therapist have developed so much and are constantly developing over the past couple years that I have been practicing. It's such an important job to me. Anybody that knows me would know that. I talk about my job a lot. It's probably annoying, but it's a really important to me, this work, and being good at what I do, and to forming my own opinions and beliefs about what the point is of doing therapy, of being a therapist, whatever. So it's always a personal thing to share, because I know people might disagree with me or think what I'm saying is whack. And especially today's topic, which is based around a listener question, about therapy and feeling like, is it working? Am I not doing something right? Is my therapist not qualified or competent or whatever? I think that's a very common question, and for me to adequately answer it, I think it requires me to go out a little bit more on a limb from the typical language we have around, what therapists are supposed to do or what you can expect, and kind of a departure from the client-centered focus. Without going too much on a tangent, I get so frustrated that whenever I try to Google something I'm struggling with, like as a therapist, struggling with, feeling like you can't get through to a client, feeling like you don't know how to connect, that you're super confused in session with someone or whatever. Anytime you're trying to Google anything as a therapist, the results are always, if your therapist does this, here's what you do. It's always client-centered. There's not much out there, at least super readily accessible, for support in this profession, because part of being in a helping profession is it is built to be focused on the other. You are there to help. You are there to support, to assist. And yes, that is true, obviously, but I think it can lead to some issues, which is really what I want to get into today, is that ultimately therapy is a two-way street. The relationship is a two-way street. For it to be authentic and real, it has to be. We're not AI on the other side of the line trying to, give you answers about your life. It is an actual living, breathing other person. And how does that impact the relationship? And I think ultimately how quick or effectively therapy can work for you. So that's why I think it's relevant as an episode. It's not just for my therapists out there that are looking for support or understanding. I think ultimately what I'm getting into today is, how can you improve your relationship in therapy so you can get more of what you want out of it. So if you have a question like this or any other question that you would like me to answer, please reach out to me at theevergreenrx@gmail.com or call me or text me at 512-655-9888. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear your thoughts about today's episode as well. So once you're done listening, you could find me over on social media at theevergreenrx. But please don't get mad at me. Please don't get mad at me for the things that I'm going to say today. I really can't take it. I don't want to come off as flippant or disrespectful to you if you are a client, or I'm going to go ahead and read the question and we'll work from there. Okay? Yeah. So let's open up and see what this listener has to say. It says, Dear Evergreen, I've been paying my therapist for months and nothing's fixed. Am I doing therapy wrong or is she slacking? So this is specific language. Not everybody expects therapists to be able to fix them. Some people do, but I think it's general enough to kind of capture the idea that I hear echoed a lot with people in their own personal journeys. You know, so much information online about how people are receiving therapy or their therapist. And believe it or not, a lot of people in their personal life tell me about their experience. So I hear a lot about it, and people struggling with like, am I getting what I want? Am I getting what I'm paying for? Therapy's expensive. Like, my therapist did this thing that bothered me. Like, should I keep seeing her? I don't know if it's a good fit. Like I don't know what to do about this. I don't think my therapist gives me answers. Whatever. There's a lot of this general kind of questioning that can go on, which I think is great. We should question, critically think about the things that we are investing in. But zooming out first, before getting more specific into this, therapy is still such a young profession, and I think we lose sight of that a lot. I did a little Googling before this because I know that the field of psychology and the field of counseling are very young, but I didn't know how young. And it's fascinating. Psychology, the field of psychology really was formally established in 1879, and the field of counseling was formally established in 1900s, early 1900s. So this stuff is not old. And for dealing with something as complex as the human mind and human experience, oh my God, we've barely scratched the surface. So I think from the outside, there can be this perspective that the experts, because you went to school for this, because you have a license, that the experts have it figured out. When that's just not the case. And we don't, as a field, as a collective, we don't understand really how people heal, at least in a consistent, reliable, or uniform way. There are some good guesses. There is definitely some wisdom and knowledge that we have gained in those past, 100 to 200 years. But there is still so much that we don't know. And so when you're thinking about your own, personal therapist or your journey, they only know so much. And just because they have letters behind their name or a degree doesn't mean that they're holding all this information about how to heal you. Because no one really, truly has that, at least in a reliable, consistent, uniform way. Like I said, every person is different. Every dyad, two people coming together, is different. Where you are, stage of life, there's so many variables. What really jumps out to me about this question that I think does a good job, it really captures what I wanted to speak to today, which is that, I'm paying you, so fix me kind of idea. Like we go to the doctor and expect them to be able to heal us. And if it's something like a broken bone, yeah, we reliably know how to do that for the most part, to heal something with minimal complications. But we also understand that there's illnesses that don't have names yet, don't have cures, that no matter how competent and successful your doctor is, they won't be able to just give you a clear-cut answer. So just because you're paying them, there might not be a fix. And the same goes for therapy, and even more so, because we don't deal with something as simple as a broken bone. And it gets dicey when people come in with this idea, like, I am soliciting a service from you. So now you need to execute that service. Think of it like getting a haircut or whatever. Yeah, you go and you pay someone to cut your hair. You hope when you walk out of there, your hair has been cut. That's a little bit more clear cut. However, if you're happy with it or not, that's a question. It's subjective still, but therapy cannot be boiled down to a transactional process. I use the hairdresser example, but I don't think any service-based thing can be boiled down because you're dealing with one person providing a service and another person receiving it. And so it's just complex, But definitely in the case of a helping profession, expecting for it to be as simple as that, I think can lead to a lot of problems, because what we lose in the process of viewing therapy as a transaction is the actual relationship and the human connection at the heart of it. Why is this important? Why should you give a fuck about that? You're like, girl, I just want, can I not just hire someone and get the help that I want and call it a day? Isn't that my right as a consumer? Whatever. Yeah, for sure. There is some level of professionality and experience and skill or whatever that you're hoping that you're going to be getting. And it is your right to get if you're spending money on something, if you're spending your time. Yes, there is a certain reasonable expectation of what you can be getting from that. However, the relationship part is really important here, like I said, because the greatest predictor of therapy is the relationship. This has been shown in research. Everybody learns this when they go to counseling school. It's like we have all these modalities and theories, but what has consistently been shown as having a positive effect on therapy outcomes is the relationship, regardless of whether your therapist is CBT or EMDR or IFS or whatever other modality name they want to give it. Having a connection and a strong therapeutic alliance, as it's called, is the number one predictor of successful outcomes. And so there's this quote by Carl Rogers, who developed a really prominent successful therapy called person-centered, client-centered therapy. He has a quote where he says, "In my early professional years, I was asking the question, how can I treat or cure or change this person? Now I would phrase the question in this way: how can I provide a relationship which this person may use for his own personal growth?" The relationship is the vehicle to change, not the wisdom, the information, the knowledge, the insight that the therapist gives you. The relationship is the vehicle for change. I don't know. It's hard for me to know because I'm so steeped in this, but does that surprise some of you guys listening? Comment down below and let me know. Are you like, wait, hold on. That's not what I thought. That's not what I thought this was about. I thought my therapist is supposed to tell me, what I'm not seeing and tell me what to do with my life. Or even if it's not so far as that, my therapist will help me solve these problems and know something that I don't and can provide that information to me and teach me in this way. And is it surprising that it's actually where the healing comes from is through the relationship, the mirror that can provide, the attachment that can provide, the safety and the trust that then allows for more connection to your own unconscious, to your own insight and wisdom, and your healing, your orientation towards healing. When you have the space to explore and process in this way, the spontaneous wisdom that comes from you and only you about how you want to move through your life and what's in line with your values and who you are. And I think that for some people, this really can be surprising. So why do I say all this? And how can this help you with your question? Am I doing something wrong, or is she slacking? How can I get more out of therapy? My belief, and this is where I go, I don't know if this is bad to say, is I think your therapeutic experience, progress, growth, what you can get out of it can be dramatically impacted by remembering that your therapist is a person too. So going back to that idea of therapeutic alliance that is shown to be like the best predictor of success, that's defined by like a trust and rapport between client and therapist, and a collaboration, like a mutual understanding of goals and what the point of treatment is for, which is great. And I think what can be added that sometimes is and sometimes isn't, and I don't think for the general population is talked about as much, which is mutual respect and understanding. A relationship is a two-way street, even when there are power imbalances. So this is where I really want to add a caveat, because yes, remember your therapist is a person too, while acknowledging that there is a power imbalance, and it is on your therapist to maintain boundaries and create a container and create safety in that way. That's why we have rules in place about confidentiality and, not having a relationship with your therapist outside of sessions. That is for safety and professional boundaries, and to make sure that the relationship remains focused on you as the client, or else it can be, exploitative or harmful in some way. However, it is still a two-way street. The way that you treat your therapist, the way that you show up, do you respect them? Do you consider them? Do you think about them as another living, breathing person? That can have such an impact on the work that you're able to get done. Because one, therapy is a microcosm of what you experience in your larger world. So how you treat or consider your therapist might be reflective more of how you treat other people in your life and some issues that you run into in your life. But also, there can be this expectation that develops for a therapist to not disappoint you or hurt you or upset you or let you down. That somehow they're breaking the contract or not doing their job by not anticipating your needs or never hurting you or having an off day. Maybe you just need someone new. Maybe this just isn't a good fit. I should find a new therapist, whatever. And yes, if it's consistently happening and there's no repair, sure, find someone new. But a lot of times I hear in my personal life, people that will have one off session and be like, I don't know if this is the right thing for me, or they start to withdraw and not give so much and not even give the therapist an opportunity to repair. And this can be a reflection of what we all want and have desired from our caregivers growing up, because therapy does become like the surrogate attachment relationship. It can mimic parent-child relationships at times. That's how we do a lot of healing and reparenting and getting our needs met in ways that they haven't been before. But even in that dynamic, especially in that dynamic, hurt, misunderstanding, disappointment will happen. And we get a lot of healing through the repair of that. But I think when you're putting your therapist either on a pedestal or just expecting them to be this kind of untouchable professional, then it can lead to this idea that those errors shouldn't happen, that maybe something is wrong. Maybe my therapist is slacking. And this puts a lot of fucking pressure on the therapist too. There's a lot of higher unrealistic expectations that someone can fix you. And it can erode the connection because there's a lack of safety on the therapist's part as well, to be able to show up authentically or explore freely. If it feels like, oh God, I need to make this hour worth it for them, worth their money, worth their time. What are you giving me? What are you teaching me? How are you making my life better? It's a lot of pressure and it's just not possible. Like, that's, again, going back to the Carl Rogers quote, like, the relationship is a conduit for you to heal and for you to use that relationship for your own personal growth, and not necessarily for the therapist to force that change and growth to happen. So again, I am not trying to blame you as the client in any way, because all of this stuff is fodder for therapy too. I mean, that's why you have someone supporting you. You can go to your therapist and say, hey, like, I realize I just see you as this like omnipotent figure that just has it all figured out and knows everything and is supposed to teach me something or to fix me in this way. And then you have this really great opportunity to work through that. And the therapist should meet you there and be able to do that. Like, it's not all on you. And in this question, like, am I doing therapy wrong? Like, no. However, I'm just trying to provide a different perspective and angle that I don't hear talked about as much, that I think can really move the needle on some of these common places that people get stuck in their own therapy. So I would ask yourself, do I see my therapist as a person too? Maybe you don't know all the facts about them, you don't have information about them, but does that make them still not human? This is something that comes up a lot that I think gets people hung up, which is like, well, I don't know anything about my therapist and I'm not supposed to, whatever. Sure, you don't know details, but ideally, if they're showing up authentically, you know their energy, who they are. Do they crack some jokes? Do they use cuss words? Like, what is the face that they make when they're showing that they care? Like, how do they greet you? How do they say goodbye? Like, you know the general energy of this person. They're still a human being across from you. How do they email you? You know, like, you still get to interact with them, even if you don't know, how they like to spend their evenings. And so, can you keep that in mind? That they get sick, they go on vacation, they have love, they get heartbroken, they have all of this stuff. Even if you don't know what it is, you know that they do because they're a human. And so I'd ask, do you see your therapist as a person too? When they say they're going on vacation, have you ever felt kind of happy for them? Oh, good, they're getting a break. I'm glad. Or if they misspeak during session, do you give them an opportunity to repair it? To have an off day, to be a little tired. I say this because the strongest, in reflecting on my own work, the strongest relationships that I have, the biggest success stories I've had working with people are with the clients that have a genuine care and mutual respect with me, for me, where it goes both ways. I care for them, and in an appropriate, professional way, I know they care about me too. If I say, oh, I'm so sorry, I have to cancel session next week, I had an emergency come up, the kind of client that will say next time I see them, oh, I hope everything was okay. Or if I'm going to be out of office, sometimes those clients that say, well, I hope it's for something fun. Whatever. Like, these are like really maybe kind of dumb examples, but these little things that just say, oh yeah, you have a life outside of here too, and I'm aware of that. And I think there's a lot of power in it. And some of this it can be encouraged or modeled by the therapist too. When your therapist says, like, I was thinking about you this week. Oh my God, you were thinking about me? Because you don't just power on when we come into session and power off when I leave. Like, yeah, that can be sometimes like eye-opening. Like, oh my God, I exist for you. And I impact you. And that's so powerful. And it's really, really powerful in the reverse too. When clients have said things that show me that I exist in their life too, outside of just a capital T therapist that they pay to listen to them, but as someone who really does show up with my own heart and care and love and listening and empathy as another person with them, that there's some awareness of that fact, of the fact that we're just two people meeting. So as I've said, this doesn't mean that your therapist needs to share about their life with you, nor should they really, or that the boundaries get blurred, or that you have to uphold their professional responsibility somehow by caring more about them and taking that on. I'm not saying that, and I think most of you will get that. But the more you can see the person you're working with as another person and not just your therapist, the more connected you may feel, and paradoxically, the more you may see change. Because this process is different than any other service. It is a we thing. We are in it together. We are figuring it out together. So I hope this makes some sense and feels relevant if you're thinking about your own journey and how you might be able to squeeze even more out of the work you're already doing. Maybe just think and reflect after this episode. Spend a little time. Do I see them as a person? Or is it like when I'm in elementary school and I see my teacher out at the grocery store and I'm like, oh my God, she's in her like normal clothes. This is so weird and jarring. And yeah, like some of it is jarring. I'm sure if I saw my therapist out like at a bar or something, I'd be like, whoa. Actually, I don't think I would be that surprised. Of course she goes to a bar. Of course she hangs out with friends or she gets dinner out or, has a partner or whatever. Like, I think I'm able to say that now when maybe I wouldn't have in my previous therapeutic relationship as much. I actually think I've changed a lot and it's been for the better. And I think it has helped me show up more authentically with my therapist and with more openness. And there's been times where she hasn't met my needs or has let me down in some way that have led to, profound realizations and growth through working through it with her. So yeah, there's my 2 cents. Don't know if anybody cares about it as much as I do. Obviously, I spend a lot of time thinking about this realm, but yeah, I wanted to put my thoughts out there on something that I don't think is talked about as much because, rightfully so in a lot of ways, therapists and others want to be really careful about centering on the client's experience and making sure that is first and that is the focus. And so trying to have a nuanced conversation in any way can get a little bit messy because people can think, oh my God, no, I'm not supposed to be, it's their job. And this can get really messy if we're creating more of a mutual dynamic. But I actually think it's really potent and really powerful to bring the therapist into the room too. And I also know that from a theoretical orientation that's happening too. The therapist isn't supposed to just be the blank slate anymore, but actually bring more of themselves into the room. So I think this is a way to continue to bolster that and hopefully see more gains and success and to continue to help people in the way that really is most effective and supportive, because that's what we all want at the end of the day. Okay, yeah, let me know your thoughts on this one, guys. It was a little bit different than normal too, so I hope that that's cool with you. If you want to hear more about this, kind of the behind the scenes in this realm and in my world as a therapist, I'm happy to talk more about it. Share this with someone if you think that it's helpful or could be informative to them. And take care of yourself. Send me your questions. Everything that you need to know is in the show notes below on how to contact me, how to find me online. And I will see you guys next Wednesday.